Consider the words from the collect. Hear the devout prayers of the church, and grant that those things which we ask faithfully we may obtain. The God once again asks God to hear our prayers. The church is the body of believers, not a building, not a semi-political group. And the collect specifies the devout prayers, that is, prayers for those ideas, actions, and the like that follow God's plan for his people. It goes on to ask that he would grant those things that we ask for faithfully, that is in accordance with his will or plan. He is always there, always ready to hear our sincere prayers. He may answer those things which are good for the church and the world for which we ask, and from his grace we may receive those things which are good for us. The part that is left unspoken is, once we receive his advice through the Holy Spirit, we have to be willing to take action. We can pray all the day long, but if we don't listen to him and then act upon what he says, those prayers will ultimately be for naught. Action and diction together shows our beliefs and where our hearts truly lie. Diction without action is not much of belief at all. In the epistle, Paul tells us, as well as Philippians, to be following God and not be dependent on man, as so many in this country are now. The problem is that there are many who claim they are followers of Christ that don't walk the walk. They are selfish and only think of themselves. There are too many people around the world who think and act in this matter. They have no desire to help others and have, in fact, a desire to tear others down rather than lend them a helping hand. This is not in congruence with Christ's teachings in the summary of the law. He warns them this will lead them onto a path of doom and destruction. We can see that being played out in our country now, with an uprising of violent behavior and tendencies and the general degeneracy in the population. This is clear proof to me that we cannot succeed in a positive manner without God's help and our influence in our lives. If more people would realize this, our people would be in a far better state than it is now. Let us pray that people would wake up and realize this. Whereas if people would love their neighbor as themselves, it would lead them on a path to prosperity and eternal life. In times of trial and tribulation, we are not to worry, but rather lean on our Lord. It may be difficult, but it can be done through the help of the Holy Spirit. We must realize that our true and final citizenship is in heaven, for which we look to our Savior. If we are on the side of righteousness of the Lord of godliness, then who are we to fear? Nobody, save a respectful fear of our God. We will not bow before the forces of darkness, but rather stand tall, equipped with the armor of light, shield of truth, and the helmet of faith. We will give those in authority the respect they are due, but we will not be dependent on them for their every need and whim. This is why those who seek to create a larger government are working on supplanting God's authority over us. For if the God is the authority, as he is, man has no power to determine what is right and what is wrong. Man is not responsible for his own power. This is why those who are seeking to enlarge their power over the people in this country must first destroy the church. The good news is that Paul says in the end, these people's efforts will be in vain and they will be destroyed as much as they are attempting to destroy us here on earth. We can be cheered up in these depressing times, knowing that we are on the winning side for eternity. We are to turn to God. If we are to be dependent on anything, it must be God for whom we are dependent, and not man. Being dependent on man leads only to eternal death to us, but being dependent on God leads to eternal for life to us. Which brings us to the point of the gospel in which Christ tells the Pharisees of how they are to deal with the problem of tribute to Caesar. They have no love for the Roman government, as we have very little love for the swamp dwellers in our own government. However, Christ reminds them to separate their hatred of the government and do the right thing, as we must give God his due, our worship and prayer. We must give the government their due, taxes, etc. But this does not mean we treat the government as demigods, to put it one way. as politicians often think of themselves. The government has to earn our respect, not the other way around, which too often it and the members in it forget this simple fact. We have to realize that God has granted the government the authority to govern, but not to supplant him. God cannot be replaced by man. His authority is where the government gets their authority and always will be. Whether they choose to recognize it or not is up to them. That's why when we pray for the president, we pray that he would recognize God's authority and align his leadership with that of God's will. The statists in this country believe the false lie that man can govern man without assistance from God or God's authority. Governments which do not recognize this fact are then doomed to fail. The history books are filled with the pages of failed governments. All failed because they refused to recognize God's rightful place as the source of their legal authority. Jesus' point is that we are to give them what they are owed, no more and no less. The Pharisees were both trying to trick Christ to say you must honor one or the other when you can do both. We should be serving God, not man. That does not mean that we do not have to pay our dues to the government that rules us. It is only through God's grace that He allows government to rule over man. The government we have was established with a recognition that it serves at His pleasure. Its Declaration of Independence establishes people have rights and due to them by their Creator, not the government. It is with the authority of the people that the government serves. It must exist to serve the people and God. It is not to be a self-looking ice cream cone. Jesus told us to feed the poor people, not create laws that take other money from people ostensibly for that purpose of which He commanded us to do. The collect, epistle, and gospel tied together, laying out and detailing and reinforcing the same message ultimately. We have to respect the authorities that govern us, no matter how much we disagree or dislike them, and conduct ourselves like Christians. However, that does not mean we replace the rule of God with the rule of man. Man's laws should merely be a restatement of God's laws, not to replace God's laws. Heaven is at the uphill trail. Easy downhill trails not lead to the summit. Time is now, not tomorrow. Time has come indeed. How you act is by our actions we are known. Be of God, live of God, act of God.